Hello, folks. I'm Josh McGee, and welcome to another episode of the Gateway to Soccer Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, very excited for this week's episode. Got a lot of great soccer to break down. Also got a lot of key transactions in multiple different leagues to analyze, and I am very excited. I brought in a huge guest to help wrap up the show. As you can see here in the home studio featured today, over here on this shoulder, I've got another one of those soccer jerseys from Soccer Night at Busch Stadium. Cardinals always do a great job with those. Got a little bit of an Argentina flair to this one. And over here on this shoulder, first jersey I got with the brand new U.S. men's national team and U.S. women's national team logo. Love that black look with the red and blue kind of shading on the sleeves there. And wearing my brand new St. Louis City SC shirt. So very excited for this week's episode. Got a lot of great soccer to look back on. And looking ahead this weekend, there'll be a lot of great matches being played. But I want to start off the show talking about one important match in particular. Despite the fact that we're all fans of a specific club, there's always those matches throughout the year that we have circled on our calendars that we can enjoy as neutral supporters. It can be in any league across the world. If you're a fan of the English Premier League, while you may be a fan of a specific club, there's always those big rivalry matches that get your juices flowing. They're always fantastic, and they're always some of the biggest matches of the year. One of those matches I look forward to every season, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this respect, is Liverpool versus Manchester United. Now, both clubs are already part of some great local rivalries. You've got the Merseyside derby between Liverpool and Everton, and you've got the Manchester derby between Manchester United and Manchester City. But if you ask any Liverpool or Manchester United supporter, they will usually tell you that this is the biggest rivalry, and it's between these two clubs. That's because they are the two most dominant clubs in the history of the English Premier League in terms of titles won. They're usually always at the top of the table. They've had some of the best English players and best players in the history of that league, and it's always usually a great contest between the two. That contest is coming up this weekend, Sunday morning. It'll be featured on Peacock. I could do an entirely different monologue about just how blatantly dumb that they're featuring this match on Peacock, but I digress. But still, it's going to be a huge matchup. I'm sure everybody will be finding a way to tune in. And of course, it's even bigger this year because of where both clubs are at in the table. In midweek, Manchester United were able to grind out a 1-0 victory versus Burnley, and that win put United at the top of the English Premier League table for the first time this late into the season since the 2012-2013 season, a season in which Manchester United won the Premier League. Of course, right behind them are Liverpool, so this will be an important clash in terms of who comes out the victor, will, of course, be at the top of the table after this week. I find it really interesting how both of these clubs come into this match. Despite a terrible start to the season, as much as I've ragged on them, United have found a way to steady the ship and have put together some quality results. They are coming in riding a 3-match winning streak. I believe 2 of those matches they won and were able to keep a clean sheet. On the other hand, despite the success they've had over the past few seasons, Liverpool actually come into the match riding a 3-match streak where they have dropped points all against lower-level competition after that 7-0 just beatdown of Crystal Palace. Looking ahead to the match and what are going to be some of the most important factors for either side, I definitely think defensive solidarity has to be at the forefront. Liverpool obviously have been dealing with a lot of injuries this season, but they've obviously kept it real close. They've kept teams to low scoring, but still you want to be able to have a compact defense when you go up against someone with such a lethal attack as Manchester United. And on the flip side, United, despite the fact that they're on a good streak right now, their defense, it's still tough to trust them. They're just coming off of that streak where they gave up multiple goals in quite a few bit of matches. Obviously, things have leveled out a bit, but still, you can't trust them 100%. So both sides are going to have to be on their game on the defensive side if they want to stay in this match. However, I truly believe that individual offensive brilliance is going to be even more important in this match, and I want to target and highlight a couple of specific players for either side. With Manchester United, I think we saw it in midweek. A healthy and clear-headed Paul Pogba is what that club needs going forward if they want to challenge for the title. When he is on his game, Paul Pogba is one of the best central midfielders in the entire world, but he's had a lot of problems off the field with things that his agent has said, whether he wants to stay at Man United or not, and of course, he's also had some health problems. But when he is in that lineup and he's on form, he just turns that Manchester United club into a complete juggernaut, a club that is supposed to be feared like they had been in years past, and he gives them just a different dynamic, his ability to control the central midfield and to contribute on both sides of the pitch, breaking up plays on defense and contributing to the attack on offense. He's only scored 2 goals this season, but they've been extremely important goals. The first one he scored when they were down 1-0 late to West Ham United. He spurred a comeback where United eventually won 3-1. And the other goal was this week, the game-winning goal in the 1-0 victory versus Burnley. So going forward, we know about Bruno Fernandes, we know about Marcus Rashford, but the only way that United are truly going to challenge for the title, and if they want to have a chance to beat Liverpool on Sunday, is if they have a healthy and contributing Paul Pogba in the middle of that field. On the other side, I want to talk about Mo Salah for Liverpool. To start the season, Salah was on fire. He only failed to score in 5 of Liverpool's first 14 Premier League matches, but since then, and during this 3-match streak where they've dropped points, he hasn't scored in this 3-match streak that they've had. Now, of course, he is surrounded by other talent on that club, but his finishing ability and his ability to beat defenders is still the best out there. Roberto Firmino, his scoring ability has really dropped off over the years. He does a lot of great things still for Liverpool, but in terms of scoring goals, that just isn't his thing. Sadio Mane, I know he had a great season last year, but in terms of just his skill level, he utilizes his speed a little bit more. He doesn't quite have the technical ability that Salah has. Liverpool need to get Salah going. I just think his finishing is a little bit off right now. He seems to get bogged down in that defense, and he just has to find a way to be individually brilliant. When he's scoring goals, that's when Liverpool are at their best. Right now, that is why they are muddled in this 3-match streak where they've been dropping points. If they want to have a chance to beat United, if they want to have a chance to maintain their title defense, Salah's got to get back into goal-scoring form. His goal-scoring form will help open things up for Mane, for Firmino, and for other guys on that club, and Liverpool will eventually get back to the way that they once looked. Obviously, both clubs are dealing with some injuries right now. We've got a pandemic, over our heads, but in terms of when it comes to this match, it's going to be tight. It's going to be close. Both these clubs have had decent defensive records. It's going to take some individual brilliance on Sunday to open up these defenses and to claim victory and the full 3 points in this match. Both sides obviously desperately need it. I'll be really excited to see how these teams attack one another come Sunday. And yeah, I think so far in 2021, this is the first real clash between two sides who I feel like are title contenders, are legitimate title challengers. And it'll be our first opportunity to see someone kind of separate a little bit in this table. We talked a lot about how the table is really condensed right now. This is the first opportunity to see some separation. So very excited. Liverpool, Manchester United, on the face of it, is just an exciting big match in general. But with these two clubs, 1 and 2 in the table, doesn't get any much bigger than this. So really excited to see this match here coming up on Sunday morning. All right, so I figured for the next few weeks, since we're in the month of January and the transfer window is in full flux, that I'd have a recurring transfer market news segment for each of the next few episodes. There was a little bit of movement here in the market over the past week, so I want to highlight some of those moves here in this segment. First up, Lyon striker Moussa Dembele has been loaned out to La Liga leaders Atletico Madrid for the rest of the season with an option to buy. Dembele has been a prolific striker for Lyon in League One. He's had 31 league goals over the past 2 full seasons for Lyon. He's been on the fringe of the French national team. He's a good striker with great finishing ability and great speed. Going to be a great option for Atletico Madrid. They've got Luis Suarez, but you never know about his health. He'll be able to handle the rest of the season. They got João Felix, who can kind of play behind a striker or he can play up top, but it's just good to have options as Madrid continues their La Liga title challenge. Elsewhere, Real Madrid striker Luka Jovic was loaned back to the club he was most successful at, Bundesliga club Eintracht Frankfurt. Jovic just never really got going at Madrid. He wasn't given many opportunities. The 23-year-old striker only made 6 league starts since his arrival, so hopefully he can get back to Frankfurt, have a little bit more success. Maybe he'll get some more opportunities down the road at Madrid. He was coming off a fantastic year when Madrid bought him. He's still got a lot of talent, only 23 years old, but obviously just not getting enough opportunities, so hopefully he can get back on form when he gets back to the Bundesliga. Moving over to the Premier League, I want to talk about West Ham United for a second. They made a couple of big moves over this past week. They sold winger Robert Snodgrass to West Brom, and they sold striker Sebastian Haller to Ajax. Now, Snodgrass wasn't a big purchase. It just seems like he's at the tail end of his career, and he's moving down to a lower-level club there in West Brom to help their relegation battle. Haller was and is the most expensive signing in West Ham history. They brought him over for Eintracht Frankfurt, I believe, in 2019, and he just didn't really pay off that big transfer fee. He only scored 10 goals in the 34 league appearances that he had during his tenure. I know a couple weeks ago he just scored that great bicycle kick for West Ham, but in terms of what they brought him here over for, he just didn't seem to connect. My problem has been with West Ham is it seems like they've had a lot of good players. They've bought a lot of guys, but they can never really condense them down into a team style and a team format. Hollier was just another casualty of that type of system that they haven't been really able to get going there. And now he's moving on to Ajax to help them out, obviously, with their domestic schedule. We'll see if he can get back on form there. So a couple of guys that just didn't work out at West Ham. They'll be able to get back some of the transfer fees that they initially paid for and hopefully spend that money on some guys that can give them a little bit of boost for the rest of the season. And lastly, Manchester United have finally completed the transfer of 18-year-old winger from Atalanta, Amad Diallo. Diallo is very highly rated, but he only had a handful of appearances for Atalanta in Serie A and one Champions League appearance, but still 18 years old, very highly rated, a great winger out there with some great speed. He'll be able to provide United with some depth, and hopefully over the next few seasons, he'll be able to develop and hopefully break into the first team on a full-time basis. But still, great to have some extra speed in the squad, and we'll be interested to see how United use him for the rest of the season. So those are just some news and notes and transactions from the transfer market this week. Obviously, things will pick up here in a couple of weeks as we approach deadline days. Not a lot of purchases so far in this window of note, but I do think that Dembele loan to Atletico Madrid, it will be really interesting to see, since Madrid right now are at the top of the La Liga table. We'll see how much he'll be able to help them out. But we'll keep you all posted on some of the latest moves from across all the different leagues around the world. And like I said, things will really pick up here in a couple of weeks when we get closer to deadline day. Now I want to transition over to soccer in America. And of course, we're going to start with MLS and an update on labor negotiations from the commissioner. MLS Commissioner Don Garber was speaking to the media this past week, and he really expressed urgency in wrapping up negotiations on a new CBA between the league and the Players Association. The PA has yet to respond to the league's proposal for a new CBA, and we are now less than 20 days away from that hard deadline that was proposed through the force majeure clause that the league enacted a few weeks ago. Again, if no CBA deal is reached within this time frame, the league has the option to terminate the CBA, and that, of course, could lead to a potential work stoppage. So obviously Garber is expressing urgency, but in terms of negotiations and what the league has offered, it's going to be tough to see if the players are going to accept this deal. Again, it would just be an extension of the current CBA for a couple more seasons, but that would freeze compensation growth. Obviously, the players can't be much in favor of that. And as much as we'd like to think that we're going to have a normal MLS season, there is no guarantee. And what should happen if more adjustments need to be made and, say, another bubble needs to be enacted? What should the players do? So hopefully we'll hear from the Players Association soon. It'd be great to wrap this up quickly. Garber also expressed that they're still targeting a mid-March start to this upcoming season. Obviously, with the pandemic, that is not set in stone. I know there have been some rumors that the league is planning an emergency start in May, but obviously what would help start the league up in mid-March would be a quick negotiation here of a new CBA. So hopefully we'll get more concrete updates here in the next week or so on negotiations, and hopefully both sides can work out something quickly. As far as the fun stuff, the offseason transactions, I want to start off talking about Kevin Molino, the former Minnesota United FC attacking midfielder, signed with the reigning champions Columbus Crew SC this week. Molino is coming off his best season with Minnesota, where he scored 9 goals and added 4 assists, and also added 4 goals in the MLS Cup playoffs. He was just a fantastic player for Minnesota when he was out there, when he was healthy, leading that attack. He's, again, great in transition, great on set pieces, and a great goal-scoring threat. And you pair him up now with the likes of Lucas Celerayán, Pedro Santos. Columbus Crew are going to once again be near the top and be a contender for the MLS Cup. This is not going to be just a one-off. What they've been able to do this offseason, they've already brought in Bradley Wright Phillips. They're going to have a lot of great attacking talent. As for other transactions, I thought the LA clubs made a couple of interesting moves this week. LAFC were able to acquire U.S. men's national team forward Corey Baird from Real Salt Lake. Baird was named League Rookie of the Year in 2018. He's coming off a season where he tallied 2 goals and added 4 assists. On the other side of Los Angeles, the LA Galaxy have made an interesting trade. They have brought in U.S. men's national team veteran and Portland Timbers left back Jorge Villafana to help lock down a little bit of that defense. Villafana hasn't really featured for the U.S. men's national team in quite some time, but still had a pretty good season for Portland. Played in a lot of big matches for them, a lot of big matches for the U.S. men's national team. Should be a nice veteran presence back there for the Galaxy, who have had a lot of places that they need to fix in order to get back to the top of MLS. And lastly, while I may not think there's too much in this, I did find comments from Seattle Sounders winger Jordan Morris this week particularly interesting, as he was talking up a potential move to Europe. He was on a media call this week. He's reiterated that he was happy in Seattle, but that he was in some talks with some unnamed European clubs. Obviously, Morris is coming off of one of his best seasons with Seattle. He challenged for the league MVP. He helped lead Seattle to an MLS Cup appearance, but that allure of Europe, we've seen the trend of guys from the U.S. moving over to those clubs and having quite a bit of success. It's got to be impossible to ignore. So while I don't think he's going to move overseas, it would be interesting to see Morris in a European capacity. I know initially when he was coming out of Stanford that there was a potential that he was going to go over to Europe in the first place. He opted to stay in the U.S. and play for Seattle. With another opportunity here, potentially, it could be tough to turn down twice. So yeah, interesting developments for someone who is hoping to feature for the U.S. men's national team over the next few years. Moving over to women's soccer, and obviously the big event from this past week was the 2021 NWSL Draft. It was held late Wednesday night. When I say late Wednesday night, I mean late Wednesday night. This thing, I think, went over 5 hours. The league introduced this new feature in the draft, timeout, where teams could stop the clock on their pick and call a timeout and basically delay their pick or make negotiations with other teams. It's an interesting concept, but man, did it make this draft go really long. They're definitely going to have to tweak that thing moving forward. But still, it was a great draft. Good to see that these young women got this opportunity. Some of them have been off soccer for a little while because of the cancellation of the college season, but there were plenty of interesting picks at the top. Expansion club Racing Louisville had the first overall pick, and they selected University of North Carolina outside back Emily Fox. Fox has been a feature on the U.S. under-20 national team, and she's also had 3 appearances for the senior national team. She's actually in that January camp right now with the full U.S. women's national team. So already a lot of experience on the biggest stage here in soccer. Of course, she had a great career at North Carolina and will be a nice option out there for the new club Racing Louisville. The Washington Spirit picked 2nd overall, and they selected former 2020 #1 recruit Trinity Rodman. Of course, the big story with Trinity is that she is the daughter of Dennis Rodman, but she has already had quite the stellar soccer career. Trinity has also excelled for the U.S. under-20 national team, and she was the runner-up for U.S. Young Player of the Year. She never got to suit up for Washington State because of the pandemic, but man, she is a fantastic player with some great speed, some great finishing ability, and I loved her mentality. She wants to be known as Trinity Rodman. Yeah, her dad being Dennis Rodman is a cool story, and it's going to get some clicks, but in terms of her career going forward, she wants to create her own path. She wants to be known as Trinity Rodman, and I think she's going to be successful enough that is not going to be a problem. Great pick there by the Spirit. There were a lot of great picks on the night, but I want to highlight a few more picks here from Louisville. They also had the 5th overall pick, and they selected the reigning ACC Player of the Year and Louisville native, Amina Ekic. Really cool to get someone local from Louisville to help add to that club. Also, at 13th overall, Louisville selected Texas Tech striker and former Westminster Christian Academy standout Kirsten Davis, St. Louis's own. Congrats to Kirsten on being selected and continuing on to the professional ranks. Another great St. Louis product to go to the NWSL. Hopefully she'll be able to have a lengthy career. And hey, not far from St. Louis, easy travel here from here to Louisville. So it'll be an excellent opportunity once the pandemic goes down to go out and see Kirsten. So congrats to her. Congrats to all those who were selected. Very excited for the upcoming NWSL season. I believe the schedule is going to be announced here in a couple of days. Very excited here for all these players that got drafted and continue to help grow the league. In other women's soccer news, I believe it was Meg Linhan of The Athletic who reported this week that U.S. women's national team center back Abby Dahlkemper is reportedly going to be signing for Manchester City. She'll be the latest U.S. player to make the jump from the NWSL to Europe, and she'll be joining teammates Rose Lavelle and Sam Mewis. So another excellent opportunity, another U.S. women's national team veteran making the jump to Europe and playing in that very competitive league that they got up there with the likes of Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea, and some of the other English clubs. So excited for Abby to continue her playing career, her professional career, and to team up with Rose and Sam over there at Manchester City. And lastly, moving on to the USL Championship, before we get to all of the player transaction news, we got to talk about the league structure news that came from North Carolina this week. It was announced that North Carolina FC would be dropping down from the USL Championship to USL League One. The club announced and said that the reason for it was to continue their role in the youth to professional soccer development of its players, but there are obvious financial implications here. The pandemic has hit hard across the big leagues here in the U.S., but of course the smaller leagues have really suffered. The league dues between the USL Championship and USL League One are pretty substantial. I think it's at least $100,000 difference, maybe even more. And obviously this keeps North Carolina FC in operation. They didn't want to be like some of the other clubs that we've had here in the offseason fold. Obviously, it would have been cool to see St. Louis FC continue, even if it meant dropping down to USL League One, but don't want to reopen that wound. Still, at least for the fans, they'll continue to be able to support North Carolina FC, but it's really tough to see a charter member here of the USL Championship have to drop down, and not in a relegation type scenario. This is not exactly how we wanted promotion relegation here in the US. So, but at the very least, North Carolina FC is still in operation. I'll be interested to see if they really are sticking to their word and how much this drop down will help them in terms of developing players and developing youth players for the professional ranks. Now let's get to some player transaction news. And I think the biggest transaction from this past week has to be Birmingham Legion FC signing 2020 Golden Boot winner and former Phoenix Rising FC striker Junior Flemings. Flemings has had a tremendous career in the USL. His 29 regular season league goals over the past couple seasons have been the most in the league. However, there's some obvious off-the-field complications that make this signing a little bit of a concern. Flemings has 2 matches left to serve on a suspension from an incident last season where he used homophobic language towards San Diego Loyal player Colin Martin. Obviously, this is really soon for Flemings to be back in the USL after the incident just happened last season. I'm a believer in second chances, but sometimes I do think that people need to take time to reflect and to have show change and to build up that goodwill in order for them to get another chance. This is pretty soon, but what does give me pause is the Legion in their press release when they announced the signing of Flemings said they had talked to Colin Martin, they had talked to Landon Donovan about last year's incident, they had talked to Flemings' previous coaches and really did their research and talked to these people. And in my opinion, if they got the blessing from Martin and from Donovan and from some of these other people, then I think it is okay. Hopefully Flemings has learned his lesson, that he can kind of show his personal growth on this issue. I really don't want to see this type of stuff happening in soccer in general. So hopefully once he has served the rest of his suspension, Flemings will be a positive force for Birmingham, not just on the field, but also off the field. Moving on to some other transactions that have happened over the past week or so, the Miami FC signed a pair of former Louisville City FC teammates in winger Devin Speedy Williams and center back Paco Craig. Both won the USL Championship in 2017 and 2018 with Louisville. Williams has been a huge bright spot for Louisville over the past few seasons. He led the team in minutes last year, and he led the league with 831 completed passes. As for Craig, he's played in more than 100 USL Championship matches for Louisville, but he spent last season with Wycombe Wanderers FC in England, but was again part of those championship clubs back in 2017 and 2018. So last season, the Miami FC, a lot of hype. A lot of people predicted them to be a potential title challenger in the USL Championship, and they fell flat. So now they bring in a couple of guys with some championship pedigree, with a lot of experience. They get a great all-around type winger in Williams, and they get a lockdown center back there in Craig. So hopefully these improvements will lead to more success for Miami next season. Real quickly, 2 more transactions to highlight from this past week. First off, Atlanta United 2 announced the signing of former Pittsburgh Riverhounds SC midfielder Robbie Mertz. Mertz is coming off a great 2020 season, which he scored 5 goals and had 4 assists in 16 appearances in the shortened season for Pittsburgh. Elsewhere in the Eastern Conference, Indy 11 announced the signing of veteran Venezuelan forward Manuel Arteaga. Arteaga has 10 seasons of professional experience playing in South America and in Europe. He has scored 66 goals in 199 appearances for his career. So Atlanta, nice boost to their attack with bringing in Mertz. And as far as Indy 11 is concerned, bringing in Arteaga to replace the production of the departed Tyler Pastner, who's moving on up to the Houston Dynamo of MLS, is a nice save as Indy look to challenge the likes of Louisville and Tampa at the top of the Eastern Conference next season. So that's what's been going on in soccer in America over the past week. Now I want to transition over to some St. Louis soccer news before I get to my guests. Let's first get to the big news from St. Louis Scott Gallagher from midweek when they announced that club president Patrick Berry will be transitioning out of the organization over the coming months, and Missouri Boys director Brad Davis will be promoted to club president, overseeing all soccer and business operations for St. Louis Scott Gallagher. A big transition for that club. You couldn't think of anybody better to help fill that role than Brad Davis, who originally came up through the St. Louis Scott Gallagher system and, of course, went on to a storied MLS career. Also was, of course, named to the 2020 St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame class. Tough to see Pat Berry go. He's done so much here for St. Louis, of course, with his work with Scott Gallagher, his work with St. Louis FC. But the club will be in good hands with Brad Davis. I'll be interested to see how he attacks these first few months of his reign. Of course, you also got Steve Trishu, who was involved a little bit with St. Louis Scott Gallagher. And that, of course, that club has been doing great things for as long as they've been in existence. But still, exciting times. Congrats to Brad Davis, and also thank you and good luck to Pat Barry on his new adventure. As far as on the pitch news is concerned, the St. Louis Ambush picked up their first win of the season, beating the Dallas Sidekicks on the road by a score of 6-5. The Ambush fell behind early, but were able to make another comeback in this match. Were able to take a 2-goal lead late before holding on. Despite the fact that they are 1-2 right now, the Ambush have shown some great grit and tenacity to come back in most of these matches that they have played. And for their effort in this match, 2 players were named to the MASL Team of the Week. Goalkeeper Paulo Nascimento stopped 20 of 25 shots in the match, while forward Max Ferdinand provided assists on 4 of the team's 6 goals. Congrats to those 2 guys, and congrats to Ambush for getting on the board. Now, of course, we look ahead to the rest of their schedule. They start up, I believe, a 4-match home streak beginning in the coming days here against their rivals, the Kansas City Comets. So schedule's going to pick up for the Ambush, and hopefully they'll be able to put together a few more wins, especially in front of that home crowd in St. Charles, Missouri. And lastly, former St. Louis FC goalkeeper Tomas Gomez signed with Sacramento Republic FC for the upcoming USL Championship season this week. Gomez was with Pittsburgh Riverhounds SC last season, where he started 8 matches and came up with 3 clean sheets. But of course, a few seasons ago, he was with St. Louis FC. So congrats with Tomas. Sacramento have got a great club, great tradition out there, out west, and are usually in contention near the top of the Western Conference. So excited for him to get this opportunity and to continue his professional career. So to wrap up the show, I brought in a great local guest who is at the forefront of one of the fastest growing industries in the world and whose work has gotten people talking here in St. Louis over the past few weeks. Hope you enjoy. Well, I'm honored to be joined by today someone who is part of one of the fastest growing industries in the world. He's a top 10 FIFA player in the America region and a top 100 player overall. And he is currently representing his hometown club, St. Louis City SC, in their inaugural season in EMLS. Hasib Zulfic, welcome to the show, man.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you having me, and I'm looking forward to speaking.
Awesome, man. Well, it's awesome to have you aboard. Obviously, be the first official signing for St. Louis City SC and to really jump into this industry that a lot of people are still trying to learn about. But obviously, you're in the middle of your season right now. You're coming off of the qualifiers for the League Series 1 and EMLS. You started off pretty good. Noticed that big result versus your former club, Columbus Crew SC, on the first day. Couple of tough results on days 2 and 3 that kind of put you out of it, but you finished strong with the win against the LA Galaxy's representative. Talk to me a little bit about your performance and how you analyze it and how you feel coming out of those qualifiers.
Yeah, man, definitely kind of a big major tournament in my rookie season. Definitely some stage fright and nerves along the line. So not the most ideal performance, but I know my potential, what I'm capable of. So we'll definitely be looking to bounce back and hopefully make that top 12 seed in that third EMLS Cup. But yeah, definitely mixed emotions with the Columbus Crew result. I'm pretty happy we got the win there. Like I said, not the best performance overall, but I think I can clutch up League Series 2 and get an easy top 12 spot for the EMLS Cup.
So it's been really cool kind of to follow you a little bit on the qualifiers. People can't really watch right now, but people, again, like I said, are learning about this industry, even though it is one of the fastest growing in the world. Obviously, you know, a lot of people playing video games out there. I'm playing, a lot of my friends are playing and things like that. But obviously the separation comes from regular people who are playing and the gamers and who do this for a professional career. And obviously there's quite a big gap there. Talk to me a little bit about how you got into gaming and those first initial steps you took in order to make this sort of a professional career.
Yeah, man. So I definitely started playing FIFA around like when I was 7 or 8 years old, and I've been playing since. Like I said, I come from a European background, so it's kind of always been in my bloodstream to play. You know, if I'm not playing actual football, I'm playing FIFA or I'm watching it. So it's kind of what I got into, and I kind of really started liking FIFA as, you know, I grew older, and like in my early teenage years, I like really got into competitive FIFA and like wanting to, you know, like kind of compete and win. So that's pretty much how things got kick-started. And I decided to try and give it a go in a qualifier they had for an event in Brazil. And that's how I qualified for that. And I knew I, you know, had something in my pockets that I could, you know, showcase.
So obviously, you know, you get to those big national tournaments in Brazil, you sign on for Columbus Crew, and you get to have those types of platforms where you get more of a following. But talk to me a little bit about the early parts of your career, because a lot of what is about streaming is not just being good at the game, but also having those streams, being entertaining, able to attract followers. Talk to me a little bit about those initial steps that you took in order to try to build up your following.
Yeah, so FIFA is like a pretty much it's a game where it's like if you're good at it, it's kind of easy to grow in the industry, uh, social media wise and following wise, streaming wise, all that good stuff. So I was getting pretty good results in this thing called Weekend League, and at the time it was like kind of popping, really popping. People were like wanting to see competitive gameplay, how to get more wins, vice versa. So I started streaming, and it's kind of what gave me a big boost, and I just took into matters, how else I could escalate this and how I could make my platforms bigger overall. And then I started creating content on Instagram. So I kind of took into account like, okay, so these people want to get better, and then I, use my resources and try it and help to get them better.
So eventually then that leads up to last November, where St. Louis City SC hosted a couple of scouting tournaments in order to determine their esports representative. You won one of those tournaments. Talk to me a little bit about participating in that experience and the pressures of wanting to be a part of St. Louis City SC, your hometown club, and trying to make it through that tournament.
Yeah, man. So definitely, I was looking forward to competing in that and winning it. I definitely knew I'd win it just because of like the regional rankings. I'm the highest ranked player in St. Louis. So and on PS4 the highest ranked in Missouri. So I was like, okay, this should be an easy, win. No need to stress it out. And yeah, that's really what it came down to. It was a pretty comfortable win throughout the whole tournament. I even had a chance to like play over the course of the second one. Like this, there was another one if I had lost the first one, but I was pretty confident to win the first one, and that's what happened. And yeah, and then I got into contact with the club, and my agent kind of handled the rest, and then here we are.
So it's got to be a really cool feeling to think right now that you are the first person to compete with that crest, to compete for the club. Albeit, yeah, it's in ELMS, it's not with the official first team, but still, you get that first opportunity to represent St. Louis and represent St. Louis City. So is that really set in with you now that you've played through a couple games? What your role is with the club and how much of an impact it can have?
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I mean, it's quite hard to fathom. I mean, even outside of EMLS, like wearing the crest is a huge thing. Like, I know, like when you look at it logically, like EMLS and FIFA, it's just like pixels on a screen. But like when you look at like what I can bring and what we can do together as like a city, as a club, there's more to it. Like from charity events, from fundraisers, from all that good stuff. I can utilize my social media platforms and just help where I grew up in.
So let's talk a little bit about your FIFA Ultimate Team, or at least some of the stuff you feel comfortable sharing about it. Obviously, it's a very expansive type of format where you can pick and choose different players. You can create different combinations of teams. I want to know a little bit about your preferred styles. Do you usually like to build your club with a bunch of different guys, or do you like to use them from a specific league? Are there players that you usually like to hop on early and get them directly into your team? How do you usually navigate FIFA Ultimate Team?
Yeah, of course. So this is the first year I've actually like kind of spent money out of my own pocket to compete, just because if FIFA's a game where it's very reliant on pay to win. So if you don't spend money, it's kind of hard to showcase your abilities. So I've spent over like $2,000 on this game. I have a pretty solid team. Obviously, I had to get the big boys in: Cristiano Ronaldo, Neymar, Mbappe. Like they're a must because just world-renowned football players and the best in their position. And there's a thing on FIFA called the meta, which is like players that you play the meta and then that's what gets results. So those type of guys, and then obviously there's icons, players who played in the past but now have their iconic special cards that can be utilized in the game. So of course I had to I always try and get a hold of it by the end of the year, which is like a really tough grind for somebody who's not able to spend 2-3K right away. But this year I was able to get hold of it very early, like 2.5 months into the game. So pretty happy with that.
So for those out there who are pursuing this type of similar grind that you had to get to, right? And there's a bunch of different YouTubers out there, or Twitch, or whatever type of streaming platform that they use, who are trying to emulate something like what you're doing right now with your career path.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips either from just playing the game for people who want to get better, or for people who are interested in this type of work, who are trying to improve their streams and trying to improve their following? Do you have any type of advice there?
Yeah, definitely. Networking is your best friend. I mean, you could say that in any aspect of life, really. If you're looking for a job, it's kind of hard to, get without networking. So same for Twitch, same for YouTube, same for social media influencing. Networking is pretty much your best friend. Yes, you could start solo and grind it out, but it's a very, very tough process. I think if you build friendships in the community and group, I think that's your best option. Um, and as for trying to make it pro in a video game, any video game, obviously you need the dedication. You have to, aspire to want to do that. It takes a lot of time and effort. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a long grind. It's countless hours you have to put into the game away from friends and family. like it doesn't come overnight. So, but for FIFA specifically, if you're a younger guy wanting to go into the scene, in pro scene especially, you're gonna have to try and save money to spend on the game to compete. It's kind of just how the dice rolls. If you don't have the money to spend, it's kind of tough luck because there's absolutely no way you're qualifying for an event. Probably what most ideal scenario would be to, I guess, get a part-time job or something as a younger kid. Maybe apply for a credit card and spend under 30% of it on the game, and then kind of work towards paying it back. I think that's probably the best tip I can give you to make it into the pro scene.
So EMLS Series 1 is coming up this weekend here over the 16th. Obviously, you didn't get to qualify for this go-round, but there will be a couple other opportunities that you'll have to qualify for the EMLS Cup, which will be at the end of your season. For people who are interested in getting to this now and are hoping to support you down the road as you qualify for these tournaments, what can people expect if they're tuning in towards EMLS here this weekend?
Yeah, so EMLS is definitely a really cool experience, not just from the inside, but from the outside too as a viewer. It's definitely one of the most unique leagues in the world, virtually, of course. The production is great, the players are great, and I think North America in FIFA doesn't get the respect it deserves. I think we have a lot of great players, but like NYC Chris, he plays for New York. He won the E-Champions League, which is mostly a European tournament, but the year they had it in, he played and he won it. So I think North America doesn't get the respect it deserves, honestly.
So going forward, obviously, I'm sure you've already received quite a little bit of a bump in terms of your following from some St. Louis City SC supporters. Talk to me maybe a little bit about those experiences, and do you have a message or at least a further message going forward as you compete here in your season?
Yeah, definitely. It's really cool. I have gotten a bunch of St. Louis followers, and I've had a few reach out to me on Instagram with like tips and stuff, and they're like kind of happy that I've been picked to represent the city, and then they're like kind of telling me they couldn't have been a better choice. So I'm really happy that they're saying that and that they agree. So that's kind of like really what's keeping me motivated right now is the people itself and the fans. Right before we, like 2.5 years from now when we'll have our actual team, and it's a big thing. So.
All right, Steve, I'm going to get you out of here on this. Obviously, you'll be focused here on your season, but there'll be plenty of other time that you're up to and you're doing things that maybe you want people to follow you here. Talk to me a little bit about your social media information, your streaming sites, where you want people to go if you want more people to follow your work.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate you letting me plug that in. So you can always find me on every platform with my name, Hasib, and then the _7. Aside Instagram, which is 2 underscores, but everything else is the same. I have a few videos on YouTube, but don't really use it consistently. I do stream on Twitch here and there, but mostly use Twitter and Instagram, so you can check that out if you'd like to.
All right, Hasib, it's been awesome talking to you, bud. Good luck, of course, in your next chance to qualify, which I believe will be League Series 2, and that'll be coming up here in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure you and the club will put out a few tweets and reminders for people to check out you and so help support you and hopefully get you into the MLS Cup. So, Hasib Zulfic, thank you so much for joining me on this episode, man, and good luck going forward representing St. Louis City SC.
Awesome, man. Thank you. I really appreciate you having me. Thank you.
My thanks to Hasib for joining me on today's show. That'll do it for this episode of the Gateway to Soccer Show. Thank you so much for tuning in, as always. Before you go, again, if you like the work that I do, go check out my brand new show, Atletico TV, on local radio STL. I'm working with Ricky Garza and Luis Swisher, and we've been doing some great work, and we finally got our first episode posted on our Facebook page. One of the great highlights is Ricky and Luis breaking down last week's AC Milan-Juventus match. We also have some great conversations about soccer and the pandemic, and we highlight some great work going on in the St. Louis community. So I encourage you all to check that out. It's on our Facebook page, Atletico TV. And of course, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe here to my YouTube channel. So thank you again all for watching, and have a great weekend.